Welcome back. Get a grip on lighting. Here we are, Michael Colligan and Greg Garrick, and we're so pleased to be joined. We've actually been talking about this for a long time, Greg. Jeff Bristol of NEMRA. Jeff is the Divisional Vice President of the newly formed NEMRA Lighting Division, bringing over 30 years of experience in sales, marketing, and executive leadership within the lighting and controls industry. Before joining NEMRA, he served as Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing for MaxLite, where he developed and executed strategies across multiple business units and managed a network of over 40 agents. His career also includes leadership roles at Panasonic Universal Lighting Technologies, Philips Lighting, Osram Sylvania, and Westinghouse Lighting. Throughout his career, Jeff has built strong partnerships across the agent landscape, including with NEMRA agents, CNI lighting agents, and specification lighting agents, fostering seamless networks to drive business growth. In his role at NEMRA, Jeff focuses on supporting members, advancing industry standards, and fostering collaboration between manufacturers and representatives. His leadership aims to strengthen the division's mission and provide representatives with the tools and resources needed to thrive in an ever-evolving lighting environment. He has a LinkedIn. We got NEMRA's LinkedIn and their website all in the show notes below. Of course, NEMRA is the National Electrical Manufacturer Representatives Association. I think I got it right.
You got it.
Perfect. Before we go there, Greg, I think we got to keep it easy with the big easy. The easy folks down at Keystone, go to KEYSTONETECH.com. Greg Garrick, Light Made Easy.
Yeah, you should know a lot about their products. They have all sorts of light bulbs and fixtures and everything. But they also have something unique that I like are these LED modules, linear aluminum extrusion. They come in different lengths and sizes. You can actually possibly, and I did do this, can retrofit a purpose-built fixture with them. A purpose-built fixture that burned out, you can actually put these in, some of them, not all, but you can put them in, customized size, and then you get the driver that goes with it, and guess whose brand that is?
KeystoneTech.com. That's
Keystone.
KEYSTONETECH.com. So easy, the easy folks. Check them out, of course. Greg, you got to push that mic up a little bit. You're popping and puffing there. Yep. Get it up a little bit. I know. You got to buy better equipment. If you have light bulbs in a warehouse, folks, got light bulbs in a warehouse, you sell them online, you sell them on Amazon, you sell them over the internet, you sell them in the field. National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors is your organization. If you're an agent or a rep, NEMRA is your organization. But if you have light bulbs in a warehouse, NAILD is your crucial shield. So go to NAILD.org. Greg, we got a huge thing happening at Lightivation in June, and that's the controls certification that NAILD's putting out there. It's for distributors, it's for installers, and it's for specifiers and designers. So we got 3 tracks, 4 manufacturers. You're going to come out with a certification. That's right, in person and online. So there's online training first, and then you show up at Lightivation. There's 3 days at Lightivation, 2 full days and an exam, a proctored exam, and you come out with a certification. Greg, don't be a chump, huh?
No way, never. Go to Light Fair.
Got to be at Light Fair, buddy. May 4th through 8th. Beautiful sunny Las Vegas. Why not, Greg? Come on.
Got to get there. It's a lighting show.
Jeff Bristol, welcome to the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast.
It is a pleasure to be here. And Greg, listen, don't feel bad. I am connected by wire, so you are ahead of me.
I used to be, but then I get all scratchy there too. The studio is the only perfect people here. They never make any mess ups on their audio equipment.
That's hilarious.
But
well, it's a pleasure to join you too. I really appreciate it. Watched the show for a long time, and am glad to be here and be able to participate.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I'm glad to have you. You have a pretty unique career, and I was looking at, as Michael was talking about it too, worked for a lot of the big dogs in lighting over the years, and now you're in a different role. It's kind of, I think you know how Michael and I are also active with NAILD, and we also do lighting distribution. We have multiple hats we wear. You've gone from the vendor side or the manufacturer side to now you're with an association. What's that transition like?
Yeah, the nonprofit. Yeah.
It's a very different life from living the manufacturer's life, and but it's one that I am passionate about and I'm excited about it. It's the opportunity to help your partners actually do something meaningful and grow their business. And I'm not saying that from a manufacturer perspective, it's not the same, but you're not selling a tangible product. What we're putting together is services and support and network opportunities that give them the resources and the tools to grow their business. So it's a different life, but it's one that at this point I'm enjoying tremendously.
Hmm.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, it's something that I could see it, being a big change, but I agree. It is needed, when you represent a group of people and then you can bring them some value that they can then bring to their end user. It means a lot. So glad you're doing that, and kind of break down a little bit about what's your specific role is there at NEMRA.
So as NEMRA was looking to expand the association and strengthen the association, one of the primary ways of doing that was looking at divisional opportunities. So I am part of NEMRA, but NEMRA Lighting, which I currently am the divisional vice president for, is a separate division with a separate P&L that is focused on lighting agents, manufacturers with lighting, and lighting manufacturers solely. And it is the mission of the division to enhance and to strengthen the lighting segment, period. So 100% of my time is focused on the lighting segment, and it's focused on bringing in membership from the communities that I just mentioned, whether it be architectural, specification, stock and flow, um, boutique, design and build. It is encompassing of all of those segments.
And what is the specific division? You said it was called NEMRA Lighting. That's what you are.
It's called NEMRA Lighting,
Okay,
and yep.
got it. And was there an affiliation with AAILA then? AA, what they used to be or what they became you? Is that how that worked, or what is it?
That's a great question. Yeah. So Jay Andrews and Billy Hodges were obviously instrumental in the creation of AAILA
Hmm.
and had a fairly robust membership for the size association
Yes.
that it was. Both of those guys, great guys. I've known Jay for a long time and Billy a little bit less, but they also were managing full-time jobs as well as trying to manage an association. So as NEMRA Lighting was forming, Jay and Billy and Jim Johnson, who was the president of NEMRA, began a dialogue about what would it look like for NEMRA to integrate AAILA as part of the NEMRA Lighting Division. So the timing was a little fortuitous. It really worked out well. NEMRA Lighting was able to integrate the AAILA Association, and the members from the AAILA Association that wanted to come over have come over and have joined NEMRA Lighting. So it is now part of this division, and we are actually looking to carry on some of the traditions and some of the events that they had done in the past. And I will
That's
say
great.
one more thing. Jay Andrews currently sits on the advisory council,
Hmm.
as do several other AAILA members, Jenny Bush, Mike Rantham, Tom Thompson, all sit on the council so that we continue to have a voice and a representation from AAILA to help us continue to push the NEMRA Lighting Division forward.
First off, I was laughing not at you, Jeff, but because there's two guys on this call that work full-time jobs that are also running association as well. We know all about it, but I couldn't believe how fast AAILA grew. That was really spectacular what Billy and Jay put together, and I love both those guys. But talk to me. I find whenever lighting in the nonprofit world gets absorbed, I'm not going to name names, but there's some associations that I've been a little bit disappointed with in the past, where lighting gets absorbed into it and then it just gets lost in electrical, and lighting becomes
Yeah.
a very secondary thing. So to almost like an afterthought. And you guys have gone ahead and kind of created a separate council with its own balance sheet and financial statements, its own board of directors. I think that's got to be the secret sauce to this, no?
So it is. I mean, so if you were to go back and you were to look at NEMRA per se,
Hmm.
roughly 70% of the agents in NEMRA had some representation of lighting on their line card. And I can quote some numbers, and I may not be exact with these, but let's just say about 40% had 1 to 4 lines and 30% had 5 lines or more of lighting. So there has been a large presence of lighting within NEMRA. However, there is also a segment that, in that architectural world and that specification world that was not as prevalent in NEMRA. And bringing AAILA over has certainly helped with that. And that is a very specific focus for us, looking at opportunities to strengthen the agency model outside of what the traditional NEMRA agent was. I'll go back to the importance of breaking it out. We get all the benefits of an organization that's been around since 1969 in terms of the foundation and the support and the fact of the things that it does very, very well. And we can springboard from that and create this division and model some of the things similarly, such as the lighting conference, which will hold in 2026. And we're looking to pinpoint the specific date for that. But have either of you been to a NEMRA conference in the past?
Never.
Okay. One of the biggest things that is different, and if anybody listens to this podcast and they walk away with one thing that is the most important for me to convey, the biggest thing that is different about a NEMRA conference or a NEMRA lighting conference, it's a business planning conference. People think about Light Fair and they think about Leducation, and they're both great shows and we'll be at both. But a NEMRA conference is partners. It is agents and it is manufacturers, and they are sitting down in private modular suites or in private conference areas, and they are engaging in business planning activities and business planning discussions and strategy discussions for 45 minutes to 90 minutes, depending on what they set up over the course of 2.5 days. It is a very, very different structure to anything that most agencies and or particularly on the spec side have ever been to. And that's one of the very unique things that we're bringing to the market with NEMRA Lighting, is having that ability for the lighting agencies to come in and build those stronger partnerships, meet with the lines, whether it be the 80-20 rule or vice versa, and really spend time planning on how to grow that business strategically with those partners that they're aligned with.
I just want to ask, the word agent gets thrown out, the name representative gets thrown out. Those two things are the same thing, right? If someone's a representative or an agent, they're talking about the same thing. But what's really kind of been starkly visible to me over the last 5 or 6 years is the innovation in agencies. So you have different kinds of agencies doing all manner of different kinds of things. Like there's a major agency out here in Mississauga that supports a lot of lines, but they have light bulbs in a warehouse. But they're an agency. They're not a distributor. They don't carry their own stock. They're holding stock of other manufacturers, but they're distributing it. And then there's also agencies that are getting involved in specification and new construction. There's all sorts of different kinds of agencies. Do you sort them into different types based on what they do, or is it just everyone has their own model, kind of like Nailed?
It's a great question, and I wish that there was one specific term, right, that was encompassing of
Sure.
what it is, but really there are there are hybrid agencies which fall between those agencies that focus on stock and flow and specification. I think one of the biggest changes that we see really across the board with agencies is the fact of the demand generation that they're creating at all levels. There's more involvement with the end user. There's more involvement with the contractor. There's more involvement with the distributor and the manufacturer. And really, they are the glue and the link between all of those different segments to one another. They are involved in everything, and that could include specifying the product, integrating the product, commissioning the product or the project, and closing it out. So I think when we look at agencies or we look at representatives, the classifications I would put on it is, you have representatives that have lighting lines are involved in stock and flow, and they're involved in Project Quick Ship. You have C&I agencies that are involved in renovation, new construction, specification. And then you have, boutique agencies which are doing more of the high-end architectural, high-end specification work. But in the end, they are all working with manufacturers. They are all trying to drive demand. They are all trying to create project opportunities and deliver that from the manufacturer, working with the distributor to satisfy the end user.
Isn't it? Is it as simple though as saying electrical manufacturer rep and lighting agent? Is that the starting point?
It certainly could.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
something, it took me maybe 3, 4, 5 years to actually figure out lighting when I got into it. I was like, who are these guys, and what does this person do, and what does that do, and finally I started. Okay, there's manufacturers rep. They're selling pipe and wire all day, and sometimes they're coming in and talking lighting, and then there's lighting agents that all they do is talk about lighting. So to me, that's kind of my starting point. Is like, okay, what are they? And
right.
and then and I don't know. And then the question is, what do you prefer to work with, or what works better? And it doesn't matter. It just depends on the people they have and the services they provide. Because I've seen good out of both sides. Um,
100%. It comes down to how knowledgeable are the people that you're working with. Are they well trained to satisfy the current opportunity or the current problem that you're dealing with? And whether they're at a electrical rep and or commodity type agency and or a specification agency. I do think that the difference is, and I will clarify this a little bit. I think that if you want to call it, the traditional electrical agencies with lighting do tend to focus more on the stock and flow and the project quick ship or the project opportunities that exist out there. They're not necessarily getting as heavily involved in any of the specification that's going on. It's a different world, right? Hiring a group of individuals to call on architects and engineers and specifiers and end users to deal with a new construction project or a major renovation project, and then dealing with those submittals and getting that job pushed to the finish line. They operate in two different worlds with a little bit of overlap, probably in that stock and flow to project quick ship type of the side.
So the ones I like, the agents I work best with, because we have a long history at Nailed of Nail. Greg, you got to pay your electricity bill.
you just kept us there.
So the so the we have many
I
members.
know a
of
few lighting guys. I could probably help you.
Yeah. He needs to go to the controls course and learn how to program his controls. There's some headbutting between distributors and agents because their paths cross out in the market, and I think that headbutting. Now that you've explained the different types, the stock and flow types work very well with distributors, lighting distributors, because you're calling up, you're ordering, you're getting the stuff. It's in stock, it's not in stock. Here's the price, whatever, right? When it comes to these, the C&I guys or the project ones that are working in projects, I think a lot of times distributors and agents will come into the same place of a deal because the customer doesn't care whether you're a distributor or an agent, and they don't care about the lighting channel. And so we're kind of butting heads. One of the things but that's okay. That's normal business. But on the question I have though is, do a lot of these higher specification end or the ones that are more involved with the construction and that, do they have lighting designers and specifiers on staff? Is that typical for an agency, or is the designers outside the agency and they're working with them separately, or is it everything?
Yeah, I don't think it's a clean answer, right? I think that it depends on the size of the agency, and it depends on the lines that agency has. There are what I'll call lighting agencies that don't have a conglomerate line, right? They don't have one of the major tier one lines, but they're still involved in specification. They're still calling on architects and engineers and specifiers. And then there's conglomerate agencies that have everybody on staff that you just mentioned. And I think that the difference there and what it comes down to is how functional are the representatives from that agency to carry out the tasks that are necessary to move a project forward. And that's where things like having the right amount of training, maintaining certain certifications, and understanding standards and codes that are in the marketplace, understanding controls. And there are guys, and I've seen guys that do controls layouts for basic projects themselves using different software that's available out there. So I really think that you're seeing, again, from the agency side, the representatives from the agencies becoming more savvy. They're becoming more accredited. They're becoming, they understand how to move the project from point A to point B more efficiently. And then that, of course, is making them more valuable to both the distributor and to the manufacturer, who's relying on them to drive the product forward in the marketplace.
I've got a question that relates to that. I'm kind of put you on the spot here, Jeff, and I know what your answer is going to have to be because of who you work for. But you've been on the manufacturer side, and you feel that manufacturers should always have the representative model, or do you feel like there's a model where the manufacturer should hire their own people in each market and then push it that way, or a combination?
Yeah, it's a great question. I've worked in my career with manufacturers, and it's been a direct sales force. And of course, the vast majority of my career has been working with the agency model, where the agency is really the sales force and the lifeblood of that manufacturer. And I think, based on the reality of today's world, the agency model makes an incredible amount of sense. It is a variable cost from a manufacturer's perspective. You have a significant number of increased sellers than you would likely have on your own if you had a direct sales organization. And I think the manufacturers that really understand how to support their partners, and it has to be a partnership. It has to be, the agent needs to understand from a strategy perspective where to be focusing their time, how to maximize the mix of what they're selling from a manufacturer to make sure that they're maximizing their commissions and that they're maximizing their revenue, which in turn then makes that manufacturer happy. But I think, from a cost perspective, to answer this question, in today's market, the agency model makes a tremendous amount of sense, maybe more so than it ever has. And I think the biggest challenge that perhaps we see in the marketplace is there is maybe not enough agencies that exist out there, which is another, avenue for an association like NEMRA Lighting to help foster and facilitate and potentially develop an agency that is interested in starting out and helping them grow within a particular market.
It's interesting.
That was going to be.
Sorry, Greg, go ahead.
I just have a quick question on that. Is do you have any idea how many agencies there are, or how many reps there are in the country? Do you have a count? Because we look at it from NAIL, but we don't know how many distributors there are. We're trying, but there's no stat.
Well, right. It's a little bit convoluted. I've seen a couple of statistics, one from Statistica, and it said that there was around 575 to 600 lighting agencies across the country.
Yeah. That sounds about right. When I look at the distribution business, it's typically, there are some major players, like FSG comes to mind right off the bat as someone that's not quite national, but getting there. You know what I mean? They're almost there. Great company. But there's a regional power to agencies as well. Like, it seems like when I talked to Billy or Jay, they would talk regionally. This guy's here, he's in this city, this guy's over there in that city, and this person is in this state or whatever. Do you foresee, maybe some mergering acquisition going on in the agency space, or do you think that the regionality will continue to thrust itself up like whack-a-mole? You do a merger and then boom, there's another agency there, whack-a-mole again. What do you foresee in that regard?
I mean, such good questions, guys. If you look regionally today, and we look at the Southeast to the South Central, right? We see the mega agency model there, the Cescos of the world, as an example, the JD Martins of the world, the Bell and McCoys and the FRMs of the world, who have, through acquisition, grown their businesses and potentially moved into segments that they were not traditionally in. A good example is FRM. FRM created FRM Lighting and Controls primarily through the acquisition of smaller lighting agencies across the Southeast and have now moved into that area. What I think that does, is it allows that agency that's growing to grow through acquisition versus organically. I also think that it does create opportunities for new agencies to introduce themselves into the marketplace, because as we know, many times there is continuity that's desired across line cards, and sometimes that continuity that's desired across the line card creates opportunity for a line that may not be the line that agency is carrying.
Hmm. The the other part of that is, if I'm thinking of a manufacturer, one of the concerns, that I have, and this is not really a merger, it's kind of a segue from the mergers and acquisitions, and that is I find manufacturers change their agents too much. Like, just when you start to get to know a guy, he's gone. There's a new agency in there the next year, or the agency got acquired and the guy that you were working with is not working in that section of the business anymore. There seems to be a lot of turnover in agency with manufacturers and their agents, but this is relative to Canada. So I'm in Toronto, Canada, so maybe it's a Canadian thing. But I find that turnover very, very difficult to stay on top of. And with some of the brands where I had a guy come in the other day, goes, "You're my best customer." I'm like, "I don't even know you." I don't think I've ever met you. He's like, "Yeah, you guys put in POs 3-4 times a week." I'm like, "Oh, okay." I'm not going to say which manufacturer it is, but I'm like, "Oh, I didn't even know." He's like, "Yeah. See, look on your invoices. There's the agency. I get, thing. You should, call me if you need any help." And I'm like, "Oh, I don't think we need any help." But that it was a new agent, and 2 years earlier there was another agent, and then there was another agent, and I would caution manufacturers, like, I don't know if it's a 5-year deal or just make a commitment or something, because the turnover in agency, I don't know if this happens in Minneapolis much, Greg, but that really is frustrating for a relationship. Just when you start to it takes time to build a relationship, right?
I'll tell you that the worst thing for a manufacturer is to have to change an agency or have to change agencies. Just like anything, you want the stability and you want the continuity that comes from a solid relationship and a long-standing relationship and an organization that understands your company, your products, your people, your systems, and has developed and maintained those relationships for you in the marketplace for that period of time. So one of the things that we believe, and it's one of the foundational pillars, is partnership. We want to see our agents and our manufacturers aligned and partnered for a long time. You touch point on a great thing, and it has to do with contract duration. What is the length of contract? And of course, we in my past life, we would offer longer term contracts to agents because we wanted to see that partnership go a long way. I will say there are situations, and again, it gets into the continuity play, where sometimes as a manufacturer, you're forced out of an agency, not that you want to be, it's because of a market dynamic that takes place. And then so some of that disruption that you're talking about comes into play. But generally speaking, I think most manufacturers want to see the relationships with their agents last as long as they can. Sometimes, the need for change does come into play, and that's necessitated by, it could be the amount of time that's spent on the line. It could just be the dynamic of the performance in that particular market. Maybe it just wasn't a good fit. Variety of different things, but in those cases, what you do hope is that that manufacturer aligns himself with somebody who's going to be a better fit for them, and of course that agency picks up a line that's a better fit for them.
Along that line, I know Greg wanted to jump in with a question there, but just we're in the topic here. Do you find that sometimes agents take on too many manufacturers on their line card? Like I kind of see that sometimes, and sometimes they have competing companies, like companies that are direct competitors on the same line card, and you're like, oh, that's interesting, because we lighting distributors know a lot about lighting, so they'll see those two companies and go, that's weird that you represent both those guys. I see this a lot with tape light, actually, that
Okay.
an agent will have like two competing tape light companies on their line card. It's like, okay, those basically the same direct competition. Is that part of the problem, or is it too many lines to kind of juggle, or is there something else that really causes this kind of switch over from manufacturers?
No, I think the number of lines that that an agent may carry, and of course, the philosophy that I think a lot of people work by is it's the agent's business, and you have to let the agent manage their business. I do think that if you spoke with a lot of larger agencies that have a significant number of lines, they would tell you, I would be happy to be able to shed some of those, to spend more time here. Again, it gets into the point of where do they go if I shed them? There isn't a home for those particular lines at this point in that particular market. So a little bit by necessity, you see some of those lines existing on a card. The other part of that is sometimes there's a specialty aspect to that line, and it's being used on a regular basis by the agent to fill out a project. And so that's, so it may not be necessarily in the 80/20, right, of the agency, but it's an important line for that particular agent. But I think generally speaking, are there other lines that potentially get frustrated because they don't feel like they're getting the amount of time that they have? It all, for me, it all comes down to, are you engaged with that agency? Are you having those conversations? Are you trying to drive that attention to your line to improve the performance? And if not, then, then there are decisions to be made. But I think generally speaking, oftentimes, you don't want to see somebody make a rash decision, but that does happen at times. But again, going back to the point before, it's a facet of, you want to see a home for those lines, and in many cases, where they reside is right now where they feel the best home is, and sometimes that is coexisting with competitive lines, and sometimes that's with significant lines on the line card.
Hmm.
Yeah. Now, you referenced earlier that you guys were looking at doing a lighting convention or conference in 2026. Are you saying that you're going to do a separate one through NEMRA, or is it going to be part of the NEMRA convention?
No, we'd like this to be a separate conference. Now, maybe I'll preference that by saying, it may dovetail the NEMRA conference at some point. I don't know if that will happen in 2026 or if it will be potentially a little bit later, just because of the timing of things and what's happening from a market perspective with shows and whatnot. But the idea is, no, we want the lighting conference to be its own separate conference. We want, this is an association that's built around the agencies that are members. It's built around the manufacturers that are members. And we want to make sure that those agencies and those manufacturers are given ample time to have 20 to 30 meetings over the course of a period of days to really sit down and strategize with those partners. And again, I've seen different philosophies and spoken to people about different philosophies. Some being, hey, I spend a lot of time with my bigs. What a great opportunity that this is going to give me to spend time with my secondary and tertiary lines and really spend quality time and strategize with them. Because the people that are attending these conferences are the principals of the agencies and the executive management of the manufacturers. And there's no end users, there is no customers, there is no specifiers. There's nobody in the halls, as an example, like a Light for All Education, when it's very busy, that when you're engaged in discussion may come up and say, hey, how you doing? And where are you now? Again, it's a very different setting. And that's where I really wanted to stress this again. The conference is unlike anything that even most of these specification agencies have been to. We did have a couple of visitors to the NEMRA conference this past, early February, and they were absolutely blown away by what they saw. Certainly, people can jump on and go to the NEMRA Lighting LinkedIn page and see some of the pictures and see some of the video from that conference. but really unlike anything that most of these agents have been to in their past.
That's why I think it's so important that people join their associations. Like, join the right association. If you're a lighting distributor, you're good. You're nailed as your association. If you're a lighting contractor, NALMCO is your association. If you're a lighting agent, the NEMRA Lighting Group is your association. You're going to find that time spent in those events and those online courses or whatever you're doing are far more relevant to what you do every day than, say, a light fair or education. Now, I love light fair. I've always loved light fair. I'm going to go to light fair for sure. This year I'm skipping education. Greg's away, and it didn't work. It's March break. It's tough for us. We have kids. But, I love education too. But the NEMRA event, if you're an agent, it makes total sense. If you're a distributor, NAILD makes total sense. If you're an electrical distributor, NED makes total sense. And NED does multiple conferences. Those guys are great when it comes to those kinds of things. So when you're very specific, you're going to find you get way more out of your time. And then when you hear that the executive leadership is there, people are business planning, there's savvy going on, you got 45-minute, 90-minute meetings. This just makes total sense. One more question for you before we let you go, Jeff.
Sure.
If we could take one more. How important is software and portals and stock integration and pricing integration and system integration to agents? It's become extremely important to the distributors. How is it for the agents?
It's equally as important for the agencies. I mean, you can imagine that with the number of manufacturing partners that agents have, the variety of different softwares and portals and things that they're dealing with. Now, of course, there's other mechanisms out there that help to consolidate some of that and make their life easier, like a Trade Tech or an Oasis or different softwares like that. But from an industry perspective, we don't necessarily see a one-size-fits-all industry solution to that. But it would be, a very, very beneficial thing to see something, come down that had depth and breadth and allowed a good interface, from the agent perspective to the manufacturer across a wide variety of manufacturers to that agent.
I think that, I think there's going to be a lot of resistance to joining everything together. I think what you're going to see is, I think the agents have to create their own software that works with everybody's software, rather than the manufacturers are going to resist it for sure, because they don't want to see that pricing and stock next to each other and all that. Jeff, we really appreciate coming on the show and telling us about the new lighting group at NEMRA. Lighting Division, sorry, I was saying group. But before we go, Greg, we want everyone to go to KeystoneTech.com, baby, the big easy, light made easy, KeystoneTech.com.
Yeah, we talked about at the beginning those modules they have. They also have fixtures, lamps, everything you need, and great service to back it.
Yeah,
and their agents are good too.
Yeah, they're good agents. And of course, yeah, go ahead.
Nope, I was just going to say it's been an absolute pleasure to spend time with you guys, and I appreciate you letting me beat my drum a little bit on the show. Certainly, we'll be at Leducation, we'll be at Light Fair with networking events for our members. At Light Fair, if you guys are there, please come by. We'd love to have you attend our networking session.
Well, we're going to be live streaming from Light Fair. So why don't we set up to have you guys on a live stream from the show floor, a NEMRA live stream with Get a Grip on Lighting. I'm inviting you. The invitation's on the table. We're doing, 16 or 20 streams from the show floor with Light Fair. So that invitation is out there. You don't have to answer right now. If you got light bulbs in a warehouse, Greg Eric, you got to join NAILD. We got all sorts of stuff cooking, just like the NEMRA guys do for lighting distributors. That's right. And Jeff's in the nonprofit world now. There's a role for nonprofits, and that is cooperation. That is working together as an industry. That is influencing policies. That is creating educational programs. That is connecting people together and building relationships. That's what the nonprofit space does. And if you have light bulbs in a warehouse, you should be supporting the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors. Of course, we got our controls course in person and online. So there's an online section and an in-person section. Lightivation in June. Go to nailed.org for that. And of course, Greg, Jeff's going to be at Light Fair. He's not a chump.
No way. Of course he's going to be there. Everyone's going to be there.
But I just think we have to throw a NAILD party at Light Fair. What are we waiting for? He's already announced there's a NEMRA event. We got to do a NAILD event for the folks out there too. So we got to figure something else out. Folks, we made it to the end here with Jeff Bristol of NEMRA. All his stuff is going to be in the show notes below, his LinkedIn and the website for the lighting division. Thank you for listening, and bye for now.